Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the world beneath you. The ground you walk on, the mountains that rise into the clouds, the oceans stretching farther than the eye can see. We're told it all came about through chance. Tectonic plates shifting, volcanoes erupting, rivers carving valleys over millions of years. But what if that story isn't the whole picture? Across time, whispers have surfaced. Whispers that the Earth we know was not shaped by blind forces but guided. That the very bones of our planet carry the signature of an ancient intelligence. An influence so old, so hidden, that most of us never think to question it. Civilizations long gone spoke of gods who moulded land and sky, of beings dwelling deep below the surface, of hidden realms we were never meant to enter. And in our own time, strange discoveries and rumours keep surfacing, as though the past refuses to stay buried. So tonight, we follow that thread. We journey into the myths, the mysteries, and the unanswered questions, to wonder whether Earth itself may have been designed with purpose. When we look back at the earliest human civilizations, we often imagine simple societies gazing at the stars and inventing stories to explain the unknown. But if you listen carefully to those stories, you'll notice something strange. They don't just describe the gods controlling storms or fertility. They don't just speak of harvests or war. Many of them describe the very shape of the earth itself as the work of intelligent hands. It's as if the ancients were trying to tell us something, that the ground beneath us was never just random, that it was carved, ordered, even designed. Let's begin with a legend that refuses to fade no matter how much science tries to bury it. The story of Agartha. In Tibetan Buddhist lore, and echoed in Hindu mythology, Agartha is not simply a place. It is an entire kingdom hidden beneath the earth's crust. According to the myth, vast cities glow underground, powered by energies unknown to us. The people there are not mortals like us. They're enlightened, ancient, perhaps even immortal. And according to those who have sought Agartha, its rulers have always influenced the surface world. The Himalayas are often said to guard one of its entrances, tucked inside mountains no human can reach. Some versions claim the Amazon rainforest hides another, and there are whispers of a gateway at the North Pole concealed by ice and storm. But the most curious detail is what Agartha was said to have done. The subterranean kingdom, according to these legends, shaped the rivers, carved valleys, and even raised mountains so that human civilization could flourish in the right places. The myths describe Earth almost like a stage set, designed so that we, the surface dwellers, would follow a path laid out long before we appeared. Skeptics dismiss this as pure fantasy, yet the persistence of the tale across India, Tibet, China, and even among indigenous groups in South America makes some wonder whether there is more to it. Could these stories be distorted memories of something real? Perhaps not literal underground cities, but an ancient intelligence remembered as rulers beneath the earth? Thousands of years before Tibet spoke of Agartha, the Sumerians of Mesopotamia wrote on clay tablets stories of gods who fashioned the world itself. The Enuma Elish, one of the oldest creation myths we know, tells of a cosmic battle between primordial beings. In the story, the god Marduk slays Tiamat, a dragon-like force of chaos. From her vast body he shapes the heavens and the earth. To most readers today, it sounds like metaphor. Chaos turned into order, myth standing in for natural forces. But look closer. The story doesn't just say, the earth appeared. It describes Marduk measuring, arranging, dividing. He stretched out the heavens, fixed their bonds, and marked stations for the great gods. This is the language of architecture, of blueprint and design. And this is not an isolated detail. Other Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki, a group of deities, or perhaps something more, descending to earth, establishing order, teaching laws, and according to some fringe interpretations, even shaping landscapes. Mainstream historians read these myths as symbolic, but conspiracy theorists, especially in recent decades, have suggested they may be echoes of an ancient intelligence, beings who had the knowledge, and perhaps the technology, to mould the planet itself. In Greek mythology, the Earth was not simply there. It was born and it was shaped. The primordial goddess Gaia was the living Earth itself. Her children, the Titans, were said to control elemental forces. Mountains were described as the bones of fallen giants, rivers as their blood, and valleys as their footprints. In Norse tradition, the story becomes even more literal. The Prose Edda tells of Ymir, the first giant. When the gods slew him, his body became the world. His flesh turned into soil, his bones into mountains, his skull into the dome of the sky. His blood became the oceans that circle the land. These stories read almost like maps of a designer's process. To the ancients, the land was not a coincidence. It was crafted piece by piece from something older, something immense. It's easy to write this off as metaphor, but consider this. Why do so many cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, describe the Earth as intentionally shaped by larger-than-life beings? It's not just chaos or chance, it's design. Cross the ocean to the Americas, and the same theme appears. The Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Maya, describes how the gods attempted to create the world multiple times. They shaped it, destroyed it, and reshaped it again. Each failed attempt left traces, remnants of earlier worlds buried beneath the surface of the one we know. The Aztecs had a similar vision. 5 suns, or 5 ages of creation. Each time the gods rebuilt the earth, it was destroyed by floods, fire, or monsters, and then remade. The landscape we see today, in their view, is the product of repeated divine interventions, not random geology, but layer upon layer of purposeful design. And then there are the stories of Viracocha, the great creator god of the Andes. According to legend, he walked the land after a cataclysm, reshaping mountains, carving rivers, and teaching humans the knowledge they would need to survive. Some myths even claim Viracocha turned stone into living beings, and living beings back into stone, sculpting life and land as though they were clay. Among many Native American traditions, we find echoes of the same theme. In the stories of the Ojibwe, great spirits moulded the land, digging rivers and forming hills. The Cherokee speak of a great buzzard, whose wings beat valleys into the earth and raised mountains when it soared. The Navajo tell of holy people who shaped the 4 sacred mountains as boundaries for their world. Again and again, the message is clear. Earth's shape was not an accident. It was deliberate, purposeful, intelligent. When we step back, it's astonishing. Sumer, Greece, India, Tibet, Mesoamerica, North America, all separated by vast distances, yet all telling versions of the same story. That Earth was shaped, that beings greater than us were involved, that the mountains, valleys, rivers, and seas are not random, but artifacts. Some see this as simple human imagination, cultures inventing stories to explain the unknown. But others see a pattern that feels too consistent to ignore. Could it be that these myths are distorted memories of something that actually happened? That long before written history, an intelligence, whether divine, alien, or something else, left its mark upon the earth? The thought is unsettling. If true, it would mean that every step we take is on ground designed by someone or something that came before. And perhaps these myths are not only memory, but also warning, because many of them hint that the shapers never truly left. They retreated underground into hidden realms or beyond the sky, watching, waiting. So much of human myth points back to this idea. Earth is not what it seems. The question is whether these stories are metaphor or fragments of truth. The legends on their own cannot prove anything, but when paired with the strange landforms and geological anomalies that still puzzle us today, they gain a new weight. And that brings us to the next step of our journey, the land itself. The strange, almost impossible formations scattered across our planet. The mountains that look like pyramids, the plateaus cut with impossible symmetry, the valleys carved as though by a giant hand. If the ancients told us the earth was shaped, could these be the clues they left behind? If the ancients told us the earth was shaped, could these be the clues they left behind? Think about it. When a sculptor creates a statue, the form remains long after the artist has vanished. When an architect raises a temple, even if the walls crumble, the foundation hints at what once stood. If the earth itself was touched by intelligent hands, then the evidence would not vanish. It would hide in plain sight, buried beneath layers of time, mistaken for coincidence, or dismissed as natural erosion. The myths tell us to look closer. Mountains that rise with uncanny symmetry, plateaus whose edges stretch like perfect geometry, caverns that seem more like halls than caves. To most, these are simply accidents of geology. To others, they are fingerprints, subtle reminders left by the architects of the world. And the most intriguing part, these so-called fingerprints are not confined to one place. They appear on every continent across deserts, jungles, icy wastelands and ocean floors. A pyramid-shaped peak in Antarctica, a cone-like mountain hidden deep in the Amazon, vast stone formations in Africa and Asia that resemble walls, staircases, even colossal faces staring into the sky. Scientists explain them as erosion, volcanic remnants, or the shifting of tectonic plates. And perhaps they are right. But when so many cultures insist the earth was shaped with intent, the question lingers. What if the myths and the land are telling the same story, each in their own way? Because if even one of these formations proves unnatural, even one mountain or plateau turns out to have been deliberately sculpted, then the entire history of our planet changes. We would no longer be inhabitants of a world formed by chance. We would be living in a monument, a design, a stage set for a purpose we still don't understand. And that possibility, that thin thread connecting legend to landscape, has drawn explorers, researchers, and dreamers for centuries. Some return with photographs of impossibly sharp peaks. Some claim to find entrances to tunnels or caverns that lead nowhere. And some, even today, insist that governments know more than they admit, quietly hiding what lies beneath ice, jungle, and desert. So the myths leave us with a haunting suggestion. If Earth bears the fingerprints of its makers, we only have to look carefully enough to see them. And with that thought, we step into the next chapter, where geology meets mystery, and mountains begin to look less like accidents and more like monuments. When the ancients spoke of gods shaping mountains and rivers, they weren't only telling stories. They were pointing to the landscape itself as proof. And when you begin to study Earth's strangest landforms, the ones that don't quite fit the mould of natural geology, you start to feel the echo of those old myths. Some mountains look too sharp, too symmetrical, as if they had been cut by deliberate hands. Certain valleys seem etched with patterns too neat for random erosion. Across continents, we find the same recurring question. Are these places truly natural, or are they monuments left behind by an intelligence far older than us? One of the most famous examples lies at the bottom of the world, hidden under endless sheets of ice. In 2016, satellite images began circulating online of a vast pyramid-shaped peak rising from Antarctica's snow. From above, it looks eerily like the pyramids of Egypt, 4 sides sloping upward to a near-perfect point. Scientists were quick to explain. They said the shape was the result of nunataks, rocky peaks that poke through glacial ice. Over time, wind and erosion can sculpt them into sharp ridges. A natural process, they said. Nothing more. And yet, the resemblance is uncanny. The angles appear crisp, the proportions strangely even. It doesn't look like a jagged mountain, it looks like architecture. And it raises questions that science hasn't fully answered. Why is it so isolated? Why does it resemble structures built thousands of miles away by civilizations that never set foot on this frozen continent? Rumours swirl around this Antarctic pyramid. Some claim secret expeditions have visited it in recent decades, hidden from the public. Others whisper that governments know far more about what lies beneath Antarctica's ice than they admit. And with large portions of the continent off limits to ordinary explorers, those whispers are hard to silence. Thousands of miles away in the dense Amazon rainforest, another pyramid-like structure has captured attention. Known as El Cono, this towering formation rises in almost perfect symmetry from the jungle floor. From the air it looks like a colossal cone, too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Local tribes have long treated the site as sacred, claiming it was built, or revealed, by beings who came before. Researchers argue that El Cono is a natural mountain shaped by erosion, but even some geologists admit its geometry is unusual. The Amazon, of course, is full of secrets. Entire lost cities have been discovered there in recent years, hidden beneath thick canopies of trees. If human civilizations could vanish so easily under the forest cover, why not older monuments? Could El Cono be the remnant of an ancient culture's attempt to mirror something greater? Perhaps even the work of the very beings remembered in myth? In the early 2000s, Bosnia became the centre of a heated controversy. A researcher named Semir Osmanagic claimed that hills near the town of Visoko were not natural formations at all, but the largest pyramids in the world. He argued that their slopes were too even, their faces aligned with cosmic directions, and that underground tunnels suggested deliberate construction. The announcement drew global attention. Tourists flocked to see the so-called Bosnian pyramids of the sun and moon. Alternative historians hailed them as proof of a lost advanced civilization in Europe, but mainstream archaeologists pushed back hard. They dismissed the hills as natural geological formations, sandstone and conglomerate shaped by erosion. They accused Osmanagic of pseudoscience, saying his digs were damaging real archaeological sites. To this day, the Bosnian pyramids remain one of the most divisive debates in modern archaeology. Are they simply hills with neat angles, or are they remnants of an ancient intelligence that reshaped the land long before recorded history? Not all strange formations lie hidden. Some stand proudly in plain sight, revered for millennia. Mount Kailash, rising nearly 22,000 feet in Tibet, is one of the most sacred peaks in Asia. Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Bon practitioners all consider it a spiritual axis, the centre of the world, the stairway connecting heaven and earth. But beyond its spiritual importance, Mount Kailash has sparked a peculiar theory that it might not be entirely natural. Its 4 steep faces align with the cardinal directions almost perfectly. From certain angles it resembles a colossal pyramid with astonishing symmetry. Legends say no mortal should climb it, and indeed no one has ever reached its summit. Some claim those who try are struck by misfortune or even death. The mountain seems protected, as if guarding a secret. Could Mount Kailash be more than a mountain? A natural wonder, or perhaps the remnant of something deliberately shaped in an age we've forgotten? The myths say gods built it as their throne, and when you see its sheer, impossible geometry, the thought doesn't seem so far-fetched. Geologists argue that symmetrical formations are not unusual. Erosion, wind, ice, and volcanic activity can create sharp angles and clean slopes. And yet, the human mind struggles to see perfection in chaos. When we encounter geometry in nature, straight lines, exact angles, mirrored symmetry, it feels like design. Consider the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. Tens of thousands of interlocking basalt columns forming near-perfect hexagons. Science tells us they're the result of ancient volcanic eruptions. But to those who first saw them, they were proof of giants shaping the land. Or look to Uluru in Australia, a massive sandstone monolith rising from the flat desert like an altar. Science explains it as an inselberg, a remnant of erosion, but indigenous traditions speak of it as the work of ancestral beings who moulded the land during the dream time. Over and over, the pattern repeats. Strange formations dismissed as geology by some, revered as sacred design by others. The anomalies aren't limited to dry land. Beneath the ocean, even stranger formations lie waiting. Off the coast of Japan near Yonaguni, divers discovered what appears to be a vast stone structure with terraces, steps and flat surfaces, like the ruins of a sunken city. Some argue it's a natural formation. Others insist it's evidence of an ancient civilization lost to rising seas. Similarly, in the Bahamas, the Bimini Road consists of huge rectangular stone blocks forming what looks like a pathway beneath the waves. Scientists say it's beach rock fractured and eroded over time, but believers see it as proof of a lost culture, perhaps even the fabled Atlantis. If Earth's surface holds mysteries, its oceans, covering 70% of the planet, surely conceal far more. And if an ancient intelligence shaped the land, why not the seafloor as well? For each strange formation, science offers a natural explanation, and perhaps those explanations are correct. Yet, the sheer number of these anomalies, the pyramids, the perfect cones, the geometric alignments, creates a problem. At what point does coincidence become pattern? If one mountain resembles a pyramid, fine. If two do, interesting. But when we see pyramid-like structures on nearly every continent, all tied to myths of Earth being shaped, the question grows harder to ignore. Are we seeing coincidence or evidence? Imagine for a moment that even one of these sites is artificial, that somewhere, buried under stone and soil, lies proof that an intelligence deliberately carved part of our planet. What would that mean? It would mean Earth is not just a planet, it is a monument, a canvas on which someone, or something, left a message too vast for us to grasp. Perhaps the mountains and valleys are not random at all, but symbols written on a planetary scale. And if that's true, then the myths of gods, giants, and hidden kingdoms were never fantasy. They were memory. A memory passed down in stories, waiting for us to connect them to the land beneath our feet. For now, the debate continues. Scientists dismiss these formations as natural. Explorers and alternative thinkers insist they're evidence of lost civilizations, or something even older. The truth remains hidden, as though the Earth itself is unwilling to reveal its secrets. But the landforms are only half the story. For if the Earth was shaped, then the question becomes, by whom? That's where modern theories enter. Ideas of ancient aliens, lost technologies, or hidden intelligences that guided our planet's destiny. And those theories, as controversial as they are, only deepen the mystery. That's where modern theories enter. Ideas of ancient aliens, lost technologies, or hidden intelligences that guided our planet's destiny. And those theories, as controversial as they are, only deepen the mystery. Slowly, the conversation shifts from myth and mountain into speculation that stretches across time and imagination. Imagine a line drawn from the clay tablets of Sumer to the satellite feeds of today. Along that line, people have always tried to make sense of the impossible. Modern theories are the newest tools for that old human work. Ideas forged where curiosity meets frustration. Curiosity because the land insists on asking questions. Frustration because our standard answers sometimes feel too small. First, there is the ancient alien idea, the image that lodges easily in the popular mind. Beings from beyond the stars arriving in an age before our records, possessing knowledge so vast that what they left looks like magic to us. This notion turns myths into memos and monuments into instruction manuals. The architect gods become literal visitors. Pyramids cease being merely the product of human ingenuity and are imagined as markers, beacons of sorts, placed with precision to align with stars or to function as engines of unknown purpose. When you hear the claim, it feels dramatic and almost cinematic. Ancient craft descending, building, teaching, leaving. In its most compelling form, the idea answers a handful of nagging questions at once. Who had the skill to move and place colossal stones? Who could have oriented structures to celestial points with uncanny accuracy? Who seemed to vanish without trace, yet left perfect proof in rock? Then there are theories of lost technologies. These are not necessarily extraterrestrial. They imagine human hands with capabilities we have forgotten. In some tellings, engineers of a vanished epoch coaxed structures from the land using methods that melted stone or levitated blocks, techniques lost with the collapse of that civilization, hidden under rubble and myth. Here the past is not primitive. It is a library with missing volumes. Think of ancient yards where bronze tools scratched at granite that, by rights, should have resisted their touch, except it doesn't. Think of artifacts that seem out of place, tools that look too refined for the age assigned to them. If these whispers hold a kernel of truth, then the Earth's oddities could be byproducts of a civilization that worked on a scale we struggle to measure. The planet itself could be, in places, a workshop whose margins are now wilderness. A third thread is less flashy but perhaps more unsettling. The idea of hidden intelligences that are not aliens in the traditional sense, nor humans, but another category entirely. Entities that might be non-human, non-living in the way we expect, or even emergent systems that arose from the Earth itself. This line of thought treats the planet as something that can learn, plan, and manipulate. Imagine a deep, slow intelligence woven into geological time, a mind that thinks in millennia and moves continents as an artisan moves clay. In some versions it's animistic, Earth as sentient, shaping itself to achieve balance or to signal other minds. In others it's technological, subterranean machines or networks that predate humanity, still functioning in silence. The thought is unnerving because it steals the human centre from the story. It proposes that the architects were not gods we can pray to, nor bodies we can meet. They were framings of agency that never had language for us. Each of these possibilities comes with its own evidence, real or misread, and with its own liabilities. A single satellite image might suggest extraordinary geometry. A single out-of-place artifact might spark 100 internet essays. But pattern emerges not from one oddity, but from many, repeated across locations and cultures. That repetition is what tempts the mind to weave narrative. If so many pieces point the same way, perhaps they are fragments of a plan. Still, the jump from interesting anomaly to planetary architecture is enormous. That leap is where controversy lives. Scientists demand reproducible evidence. Archaeologists ask for context, tools, habitation layers, cultural continuity. Geologists look for processes, uplift, erosion, volcanic intrusions, the slow work of ice and water. Each piece of mainstream critique is thoughtful and methodical, and yet for many people, the official answers feel like polite dismissals of something they sense more deeply. Why does this tension persist? Part of the answer lies in human pattern seeking. Our brains are designed to spot intentionality, faces in clouds, agency in random events. It was an evolutionary advantage to assume rustle in the grass was a predator and not the wind. That same cognitive machinery now turns geological chance into perceived design. At the same time, there is cultural hunger, the desire to belong to a story bigger than one's daily life. If the Earth bears traces of an intelligence, then humanity's history becomes richer, haunted with mysteries to explore rather than dry sequences of happenstance. The popularity of modern theories is also fueled by narrative economy, stories that offer a unifying agent, be it aliens, lost human builders, or planetary minds, wrap disparate facts into a single, gripping arc. People prefer stories that make sense in a human way. Someone built it, someone planned it, someone meant something. It's cleaner than admitting that nature in its random magnificence sometimes imitates art. Beyond psychology, there is a social dimension. The internet democratized curiosity. A single blurry photo can spark global conversation. The old gatekeepers, museums, academic journals, official channels, no longer have the final say over what counts as interesting. Fringe theories spread because they are shareable, because they offer revelation in headline form, because they make us feel like discoverers. And discovery is intoxicating. It promises that ordinary people too can be the ones to unveil secrets long hidden by institutional expertise. That said, there is also intellectual bravery in considering the possibility that our models are incomplete. Science is not static. It grows by entertaining questions, testing them, and revising its stories. Many scientific advances began as seemingly wild conjectures. The key distinction is that science requires methods, predictions, repeatability, and constraint by evidence. Modern theory about planetary shaping become useful when they generate testable hypotheses, when they suggest measurements to take, locations to excavate, samples to date. The best of these ideas, even the most speculative, become productive when they transform wonder into research. And so the conversation takes on a hybrid form, part myth, part hypothesis, part cultural narrative. Consider the ways these theories resonate with modern anxieties and hopes. In an era where humans reshape the planet with startling speed, building cities, altering climates, moving mountains, there is a peculiar mirror between our ability to alter landscapes today and the idea that someone else once did the same on a far grander scale. The story becomes a reflection. Perhaps we are not unique in shaping worlds. Perhaps shaping landscapes is a measure of intelligence, inevitable where minds reach sufficient scale. There's a poetic sting in that realization. If others shaped the planet, why did they leave? Did they perish? Did they move on? Did they hide their work so thoroughly that only myths remained? Or did they intentionally design it to withstand loss, to speak across epochs in a language of geometry and placement? The implication is both humbling and thrilling. Humbling because it reduces our sense of primacy. Thrilling because it suggests a continuity of thought, an ongoing conversation across time between makers and those who would read their handiwork. Modern theories also raise ethical and practical concerns. If someone, or something, had the power to redesign continents, what responsibility comes with such power? For those who entertain the idea that the Earth was shaped for a purpose, there is an urgency. To decode the purpose might mean altering our own relationship with the planet. If the land was a deliberate inscription, how should we read it? Should we leave it alone? Protect it? Try to finish whatever was begun? The questions quickly move from speculation to stewardship. This is where the most potent versions of these ideas operate, not as declarations but as invitations. They invite us to look again with new humility and appetite. They invite scientists to test, to excavate, to apply the latest tools, LIDAR mapping, ground-penetrating radar, advanced geochemistry, to places that have long been written off. They invite storytellers and artists to imagine worlds where intelligence moves in geological time. They invite ordinary listeners, people like you and me, to walk through landscapes with fresh eyes, to wonder, to question, to dream. And yet, the signal danger is misinterpretation and loss. When myth and speculation meet modern tools, there is potential for both discovery and damage. Excavations carried out with the zeal of believers can destroy context that would answer the very questions they seek to ask. Wild theories can overshadow careful inquiry, funneling attention and resources into sensational claims rather than systematic study. The balance, delicate as it is, must be kept. Curiosity tempered by method, wonder guided by evidence. The persistence of modern theories, ancient aliens, lost technologies, hidden intelligences, says something important about us. It says we are not satisfied with simple stories when the landscape refuses simplicity. It says we crave depth, continuity, and meaning. It says that when faced with a planet that feels like a monument, our minds naturally reach for makers, and so the mystery deepens rather than dissolves. Every new satellite image, every new excavation, every new piece of data is folded into the larger conversation. Theories evolve, some are discarded, others are refined. A few ideas, stubborn and fertile, become research programs. The border between fringe and mainstream shifts as new evidence accumulates. In the meantime, for the listener lying in bed with night falling outside their window, the questions remain deliciously open. Who shaped the Earth? Was it beings from the sky, architects of a cosmic order? Was it human hands wielding technologies now lost to time? Was it a mind that thinks in continental breaths rather than human heartbeats? Or was it a combination of all these things, overlapping in ways we can only begin to imagine? We can stand at the edge of a canyon or the base of an ancient mountain and feel it, the pull of a story that wants completion. We can trace the lines on a map and sense the possibility of intention. Whether those lines lead to gods, humans, or something else entirely, the search itself becomes part of our human story. the story of a species that looks outward and upward and finally down into the ground beneath its feet, with the same mixture of reverence and curiosity the ancients felt. And as that search continues, through myth, through science, through the restless reach of imagination, one certainty remains. The more we look, the more the planet keeps its quiet counsel, revealing only what it chooses when the time is right, and to those who learn to listen in the ancient language of patience and evidence. From this place of listening, the next chapter of our investigation begins, where modern theories are not just whispered on forums but laid out in detail, questioned and stretched until they either snap under scrutiny or open like a map. We move now into that territory. The ideas themselves, the claims they make, the evidence offered, and the ways those ideas reshape how we might see the world. The myths have spoken, the landforms have whispered, the patterns have lingered. But if Earth was shaped, then the mystery sharpens into a single question. By whom? This is where modern speculation takes over. Ideas that live at the border between history and imagination, between evidence and desire. Some see architects in the stars, some see builders in our own forgotten past. Some see intelligences that defy both categories, minds that do not think in years but in eons. Each theory, however controversial, is a lens. And when you hold these lenses up to the world, the Earth begins to look different. Less like an accident, more like a story still unfolding. Perhaps the most famous and divisive theory is that of ancient aliens. It is an idea that has captured imaginations for decades, spread through books, television, and whispered conversations late at night. The claim is simple, but its implications are staggering. That beings from beyond our planet visited Earth long before humans were capable of recording history. They did not merely visit, they shaped. The appeal of this theory is immediate. Look at the pyramids of Giza, colossal stones cut and stacked with precision that seems almost impossible for the tools we believe the Egyptians had. Look at the Nazca lines in Peru, vast geoglyphs that can only be fully seen from the sky. Look at ancient temples aligned with solstices, equinoxes and star clusters, as though their builders had astronomical knowledge rivaling our own. Skeptics argue that these are triumphs of human ingenuity, nothing more. But believers counter that the scale, precision, and cosmic alignment of these works suggests something greater. They imagine alien visitors as teachers, architects, perhaps even overseers, guiding humanity from primitive tribes towards civilization. In this view, Earth itself may have been part of their project. The mountains could be markers, the oceans boundaries, the continents shaped like pieces of a grand design. And if the Antarctic Pyramid or El Cono in the Amazon proved deliberate, then they might not just be monuments of a lost culture. They could be evidence of extraterrestrial architecture written across our planet. The question then is why? Why would beings capable of crossing light years care to mould Earth at all? Some say it was to create a cradle for humanity. Others claim Earth is a way station, a testing ground, or even a laboratory. And the most unsettling suggestion is that humanity was never the point, that Earth was shaped for purposes we cannot comprehend, and we're simply the bystanders of a design meant for others. Not everyone looks to the stars. Some theories turn inward to our own species. They suggest that long before Sumer, before Egypt, before any known culture, there existed a civilization of astonishing advancement. One that rose, flourished, and fell, leaving only fragments, myths, monuments, and landscapes too vast to erase. This idea has many faces. Some point to Plato's Atlantis, a great island nation swallowed by the sea. Others reference the Mahabharata, with its descriptions of powerful weapons and flying machines. Still others point to the sudden appearance of complex architecture in ancient sites, asking whether we are glimpsing not a beginning, but a remnant of something older. Supporters of this theory see Earth's anomalies not as alien artifacts, but as the leftovers of human achievement. The Antarctic pyramid, perhaps the peak of a city long buried beneath ice, the Bosnian hills, the ruins of an ancient European culture erased by time, the giant stone blocks of Baalbek in Lebanon, foundations laid by engineers whose knowledge has been lost for tens of thousands of years. If this is true, then humanity is not the first chapter of civilization, but the second, or third, or 10th. Earth's shape may bear the scars of technologies and projects far beyond what we can imagine, abandoned when those societies collapsed. In that sense, we're not children being taught by aliens, but descendants who have forgotten our ancestors' language. There is another possibility, one more subtle, more eerie, that the intelligence which shaped Earth never left because it was never external. Instead, it has always been here, hidden in ways we fail to notice. Some theories imagine subterranean civilizations like Agartha guiding humanity from the depths. Others envision machine networks buried beneath the crust, artifacts of a pre-human age. Still others whisper of Earth itself as a conscious being, a planetary mind shaping its own body with slow, deliberate intention. Think of it this way. If Earth is billions of years old and life has existed on it for hundreds of millions, then how arrogant is it to believe that intelligence only appeared with us? What if another intelligence, slower, quieter, and far older, arose in forms we cannot easily recognize? It may not think like us, but it may still act with purpose. It may raise mountains, flood valleys, or tilt continents as part of its design. In such a view, humanity is not the center of the story. We are simply guests living on the skin of a being that is alive in the ways we barely understand. Our myths of gods shaping the earth could be echoes of encounters with that deeper intelligence, given names we could comprehend. Then, there are the most radical speculations, those that leave geology behind entirely. The idea that Earth's shape is not natural because Earth itself is not natural, that we're living in a constructed reality, a simulation. If that is true, then the anomalies we see, pyramidal mountains, geometric alignments, unexplained patterns, are not the fingerprints of aliens or lost builders, but glitches or intentional clues within a program. Earth's design would be literal design, lines of code translated into mountains and rivers. This theory has gained traction in recent years, especially as our own simulations grow more sophisticated. If we can create digital worlds where landscapes stretch to the horizon, who is to say a greater intelligence has not done the same on a planetary scale? It is a dizzying thought that the entire world, from the smallest pebble to the highest peak, is the product of architecture, not of stone and steel, but of information. Skeptics dismiss these ideas as pseudoscience, the product of imagination hungry for meaning. But their persistence says something important. They reflect our unease with randomness. They show our longing for purpose. And they mirror the same impulse that birthed ancient myths, the need to believe the world is more than accident. Whether the shapers were gods, aliens, ancestors, hidden intelligences, or programmers, the effect is the same. They turn Earth into a story, a narrative we are part of, even if we don't yet understand the ending. And perhaps that is why these theories continue to thrive. Because when we look at a mountain and wonder whether it was carved, when we stare at a satellite image and ask whether it was planned, we are reaching for something bigger than explanation. We are reaching for belonging, yet for all the speculation, we remain in the dark. No alien craft has been recovered. No definitive ruins of a lost global civilization have been confirmed. No subterranean kingdom has opened its gates. No code has glitched to reveal the simulation. And so the Earth keeps its silence. The anomalies remain mysteries. The myths remain whispers. But in that silence, curiosity grows, and as technology advances, LIDAR scanning jungles, drilling ice cores, mapping the seafloor, we are inching closer to answers. Perhaps one day we will uncover undeniable proof of the Shapers, or perhaps the Earth will remain inscrutable, a riddle we are never meant to solve. Until then, modern theories serve not just as answers but as invitations. They invite us to look closer, to question what we take for granted, to remember that even the most ordinary landscapes may carry secrets, and whether those secrets lead us to aliens, ancestors, hidden intelligences or simulations, the journey itself matters. Because in the act of questioning, we reconnect with the oldest human impulse, the one that gave birth to myths in the first place, the need to know where we come from and what story we're living in. The need to know where we come from and what story we're living in. It is a need that sits at the core of human nature. From the moment we learn to gather around fires, to paint on cave walls, to tell stories to our children, we have carried that hunger, not just to survive from day to day, but to understand the larger arc we are part of, to believe that our lives are not scattered pieces, but threads woven into something vast. When we stare at the stars, we wonder whether our origin lies out there, in distant constellations we can barely see. When we dig into the earth and uncover bones and tools, we wonder whether our ancestors were truly as simple as the textbooks suggest, or whether whole chapters of their brilliance have been lost. When we walk through forests, mountains, or deserts, we sometimes feel a hush, a sense of presence, as though the land itself remembers more than it reveals. This longing is not satisfied by easy answers. It is not stilled by charts or timelines alone. Even when science explains how continents drift, or how mountains rise, or how rivers carve valleys, something in us still whispers, "But why here? Why like this?" It is the same whisper that drives every myth, every speculation, every theory. Because deep down we sense that our story is not just biological. It is not just the tale of survival, evolution, or adaptation. It feels like a narrative with intent, as if someone, or something, set the stage long before we arrived, waiting for us to play our part. And so we keep asking, were the Shapers gods, weaving earth as a temple for divine mysteries? Were they ancestors, our own kind, so advanced that their works now look like natural features? Were they strangers from the stars, architects with blueprints written across continents? Or was it something even more elusive? The earth itself, alive and aware, sculpting its own form in ways we cannot yet measure. These questions are not small. They define how we see ourselves. If Earth is random, we are wanderers in an indifferent cosmos. If Earth is shaped, then we are participants in a grand design. Though the purpose of that design may still be hidden, the need to know is also a need for belonging. To understand where we come from is to know where we stand. And to know what story we're living in is to finally see ourselves not as isolated beings, but as characters in a tale that stretches back beyond memory and perhaps forward into futures we cannot yet imagine. But stories, especially those told on the scale of planets, always meet resistance. For every whisper of gods, aliens, or lost builders, there is another voice demanding evidence. For every strange mountain that looks like a pyramid, there is a geologist ready to explain erosion. For every myth of ancient architects, there is a historian pointing to metaphor. And so, to move forward, we must balance wonder with caution. We must weigh speculation against science. Because while mystery calls to us, science answers in its own language, a language that does not always silence the questions, but reshapes them. Which brings us to the next part of this journey. What does science actually say? And how does the scientific lens transform, or challenge, the idea that Earth was shaped by an ancient intelligence? It is not a small thought. It is the kind of thought that changes how we see everything, our history, our purpose, even the ground beneath our feet. It turns every mountain into a possible monument, every river into a possible inscription, every coastline into the edge of a vast design. At first, it may feel like fantasy, a bedtime story for restless minds. But sit with it longer, let it echo, and you begin to sense its weight. Because this idea is not new. It has been with us since the beginning, passed down in myths, whispered in temples, painted in symbols, carved into stone. The gods of Sumer, the titans of Greece, the giants of Norse myth, the creator beings of the Americas, all spoke of a world shaped, not stumbled into being. And now, in our modern age, the question rises again, dressed in new words: aliens, simulations, lost civilizations, hidden intelligences. The language has changed, but the longing behind it remains the same. Humanity has never been content with chance. We yearn for purpose, for story, for meaning. Think of what it would mean if the Earth truly were shaped, not just nudged here and there by tectonic plates, but sculpted with vision. Imagine walking across a continent and knowing it was laid out like a manuscript, its lines and curves carrying messages you have yet to decipher. Imagine the ocean not as a void of water, but as a boundary deliberately drawn, a wall of liquid meant to contain or protect. Imagine the deserts as cautions, the forests as invitations, the mountains as watchtowers raised to the sky. It would mean we're not living on an ordinary planet at all. We're living in an artifact, a structure, a monument so large that we mistake it for the world itself. And then the questions pour in. If Earth was shaped, who shaped it? Were they flesh and blood beings, standing on this soil long before us, wielding tools we've forgotten? Were they minds from the stars, crafting planets as we craft sculptures? Were they gods, not in metaphor but in truth, bending matter into form by sheer will? Or was it something stranger still, an intelligence without body or boundary, perhaps the Earth itself, conscious and slow, carving itself into being with patient hands of stone and water? Each possibility is overwhelming. If it was aliens, then we're not alone, and our planet is part of a galactic story we cannot yet read. If it was lost humans, then our history is broken, and we are the children of a forgotten greatness. If it was Earth itself, then we are not the masters of the planet but its guests, walking across the body of a living mind. And if it was gods, then every sunrise, every storm, every quake is not random but deliberate, part of a design we may never understand. The unsettling truth is that we do not know. The evidence we hold is fragments, strange mountains, uncanny symmetries, myths that mirror each other across oceans. Each piece alone can be explained away, but together they form a chorus too loud to ignore. The idea that Earth was shaped by an ancient intelligence also asks something of us: humility. It reminds us that we may not be the first, or the greatest, or the final. We may be temporary actors on a stage set long before we arrived. The props and scenery are immense. Mountains, seas, deserts, but they are not ours. They belong to the playwright we cannot see. And yet, even as humbling as it is, the idea is also thrilling. Because if Earth was shaped, then nothing around us is meaningless. The ridges of hills, the placement of rivers, even the arrangement of continents could hold significance. Perhaps we are meant to notice, to connect the dots, to read the landscape like scripture written in stone. Perhaps Earth is not only our home but also our message, a letter written across time, waiting for us to learn its language. What would it mean if one day we understood that language? If we could finally say with certainty that the shapes of the world were intentional, and if we could decode their intent? Would we find comfort in knowing our place? Or would the revelation unravel us, showing us that our role in the story is smaller or stranger than we imagined? Consider this. When explorers discovered ancient temples in the jungle, overgrown with vines, their first reaction was awe. These were not just ruins, they were messages from the past. But Earth itself could be a temple far greater, a ruin so immense we live inside it without realizing. Every mountain a pillar, every ocean a wall, every continent a chamber of an architecture we're too close to see. The idea is controversial, yes. Science demands proof, and so far, proof is elusive. But even in its elusiveness, the idea has power. It reshapes how we look at the world. It reawakens a sense of wonder that modern life often dulls. It asks us to walk outside, look at the horizon, and see not randomness but intention. To see not just rock and soil but story. And maybe, in the end, that is the gift of the idea. Whether it is fact or myth, whether the shapers were gods, aliens, ancestors, or the Earth itself, the very act of imagining it changes us. It stretches our perspective. It humbles us. It reminds us that we live on a planet that may still hold secrets beyond counting. The idea that Earth was shaped by an ancient intelligence is not an answer. It is a question that echoes through myths, through landscapes, through the deepest parts of our imagination. And like all great questions, it does not end. It opens. It pushes us forward, asking not only where we come from, but also what story we are part of and what comes next. The idea that Earth was shaped by an ancient intelligence is mesmerizing. It tugs at our imaginations, fills our dreams, and makes the world feel alive with hidden meaning. But if myths and theories invite us to believe, science invites us to question. Science asks, what is the evidence? What can we measure? What processes can explain what we see? To approach the mystery of Earth's shape through the scientific lens is not to silence the story. It is to place it under a different kind of light. A light that is sometimes harsh, sometimes sobering, but often just as wondrous as the myths themselves. Geology is the science of Earth's bones, the rocks, the layers, the vast processes that shape continents and mountains over millions of years. To geologists, the symmetry of a pyramid-shaped peak or the strangeness of a circular structure is not necessarily evidence of design, but the signature of natural forces at work. Take the Antarctic pyramid, for example. What looks like architecture may simply be a nunatak, rock rising through ice, carved into sharp ridges by relentless wind and freezing temperatures. Geologists point out that many mountains, from the Matterhorn in Switzerland to Mount Shivling in India, form natural pyramids through erosion. What appears deliberate to the human eye may simply be the result of nature's patient hand. Or consider El Cono in the Amazon. Its sharp slopes might look uncanny, but conical peaks are common in volcanic regions. They are the product of magma rising, cooling, and weathering over ages. To the scientific mind, its symmetry is striking but not unique. Even the Bosnian pyramids, so hotly debated, have explanations. Geologists explain the straight blocks of stone as natural fracturing of sedimentary rock. Erosion can carve slopes that mimic symmetry. To them, the hills are not monuments but accidents of geology. Science, in this way, pushes back against the narrative of design. It shows us that the Earth is capable of creating order out of chaos, that geometry, symmetry, and alignment can emerge from natural forces without the need for architects. One of the most powerful tools science gives us is statistics. When you look at enough mountains, valleys, and coastlines, some of them will inevitably resemble pyramids, faces, or walls. It is the same principle that makes clouds look like animals, or the moon seem to carry a human face. Our brains are wired to find patterns, even where none exist. This tendency is called pareidolia. It is not a flaw. It's a feature of human perception. It kept our ancestors alive by allowing them to spot predators in the brush or human figures in the distance. But when we apply it to geology, it can deceive us. A cliff face becomes a sculpture. A ridge becomes a wall. A mountain becomes a pyramid. Science reminds us that just because something looks deliberate does not mean it is. Appearances are not proof. They are invitations to investigate. But investigation often reveals processes far simpler than design. Beyond specific anomalies, science also offers the big picture. Earth, as measured by satellites, is an oblate spheroid, slightly squashed at the poles, bulging at the equator due to rotation. This shape is confirmed by centuries of observation. The way ships disappear over the horizon, the way stars shift with latitude, the way satellites orbit smoothly. The spherical Earth is not a mystery. It is the predictable outcome of gravity pulling matter into balance. If Earth had been sculpted by intelligence, why would it mimic the exact form predicted by physics? Science argues that no external shaper is necessary. The laws of nature alone are sufficient to explain Earth's form. Science is also a storyteller, one that speaks in the language of time. To a geologist, mountains are not fixed monuments, but temporary wrinkles in Earth's skin. They rise as tectonic plates collide, and they crumble under rain, wind, and ice. Valleys deepen, rivers change course, deserts spread. Over millions of years, these processes sculpt landscapes of astonishing beauty and symmetry. What looks like design in a human lifetime is simply the slow inevitability of natural forces. The Grand Canyon, for instance, looks like a deliberate carving, but it is the patient work of the Colorado River, cutting deeper each year. To science, the Earth is not a static artifact, but a living process. Its shape is always changing. And in that constant change there is no need for ancient architects. The architects are time and physics themselves. Science operates on a principle. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. To claim that Earth was shaped by intelligence is perhaps the most extraordinary claim of all. It would rewrite geology, archaeology, and even cosmology. It would mean that the most basic assumptions about our world are incomplete, and yet, despite centuries of exploration, no undeniable evidence has surfaced. No ancient tools capable of moving mountains, no alien artifacts embedded in the crust, no inscriptions large enough to prove intent. Without evidence, science remains cautious. This does not mean the idea is impossible, but it does mean that for now it lives in the realm of speculation, not established fact. But here is where the story takes an interesting turn. Because while science often rebuts the idea of ancient intelligence, it also reveals a wonder that is just as powerful. Consider that erosion alone can carve formations like the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, tens of thousands of perfect hexagonal columns as if chiselled by giants, or that tectonic pressure can raise mountain ranges that stretch across continents, snow-capped and magnificent, or that glaciers can sculpt valleys in smooth curves, leaving behind lakes like mirrors of the sky. These processes are blind, indifferent, without intent, yet they create beauty that rivals any design. To a geologist, Earth's architect is nature itself, working on scales of time and force we can barely comprehend. And perhaps this is its own kind of intelligence, not conscious but emergent, not planned but inevitable. A design without a designer, yet still magnificent. At first glance, science and speculation seem opposed. One demands proof, the other thrives on imagination. One insists on caution, the other delights in wonder. But perhaps they are not enemies. Perhaps they are partners in a larger story. Because science does not erase mystery, it sharpens it. Every answer reveals new questions. Every discovery opens new horizons. To study geology, astronomy, or biology is to confront processes so vast, so intricate, that they often feel indistinguishable from design. And speculation, for its part, keeps curiosity alive. It pushes us to look again, to notice patterns, to challenge assumptions. Without speculation, many of science's greatest breakthroughs would never have been pursued. The balance lies in letting science test our stories, while letting stories remind science of the wonder that drew us to explore in the first place. And so, science speaks and speculation listens, myths whisper and measurements respond. The earth remains silent, vast and patient, holding its secrets close. Perhaps the anomalies are illusions, born of our hunger for meaning. Perhaps they are real clues, waiting for the right tools to reveal their truth. For now, both science and speculation must live side by side, each offering a piece of the puzzle. Because whether Earth was shaped by intelligence or by nature, the result is the same, a planet of breathtaking mystery, a world that invites us to wonder. And that wonder does not end here, for while science offers explanations, there remain unanswered questions, mysteries that even geology, archaeology, and physics cannot yet solve. It is in those gaps, those silences, that speculation grows strongest, and it is there that the story turns next. Consider Devil's Tower in Wyoming, a monolith of rock that rises abruptly from the plains like a colossal pillar. Its surface is etched with long vertical grooves, giving it the appearance of something carved, almost like an enormous organ pipe or the walls of a man-made fortress. To indigenous tribes, the tower is sacred. Legends tell of children saved from a giant bear, the beast's claws scratching the vertical lines into the rock as the earth itself lifted them out of danger. To modern storytellers, its impossible symmetry has fueled theories of artificial origin or even links to extraterrestrials. But geologists explain it differently. They see it as the hardened core of an ancient volcano, exposed after softer rock eroded away. The grooves, they say, are the result of cooling magma, fracturing into vertical columns, a natural process that repeats in smaller formations around the world. Here, the scientific explanation is elegant, even beautiful. Yet for many, the legend and the mystery remain. Science says it is natural, Culture insists it is meaningful, and between those two voices the tower still stands, monumental and silent. Then there is the Risha structure in Mauritania, also known as the Eye of the Sahara. From space, it looks almost too perfect. A vast bullseye carved into the desert, concentric circles stretching across 25 miles. At first glance, it appears artificial, as though it could be the foundation of a colossal city, or even the remnants of Atlantis itself. Some alternative theorists argue exactly that, but geologists describe it as a deeply eroded dome of rock, shaped by uplift and weathering over millions of years. The rings are natural layers exposed one by one as softer stone wore away. To science, the Eye of the Sahara is a geological wonder, not a human or alien artifact. And yet, even with this explanation, the allure persists, because the Risha structure looks intentional. It looks like design, and that is enough to keep it alive in the world of speculation. Uluru, the great red monolith of Australia, rises from the desert like an altar. It is a single block of sandstone, massive and imposing, glowing with colour at sunrise and sunset. Indigenous traditions speak of it as sacred, formed by ancestral beings in the dream time. To them, Uluru is not just a rock, it is a living story. Science explains it as an Inselberg, a leftover of ancient mountain ranges worn down by erosion. It is natural, yes, but its isolation, its symmetry and its presence have made it more than natural in the eyes of those who live around it. This raises an important point. Science and story are not mutually exclusive. Uluru can be both a geological marvel and a sacred monument. To dismiss one in favour of the other is to miss half the truth. One strength of science is its methodical approach. When confronted with an anomaly, a mountain that looks like a pyramid, a structure beneath the sea, a circular formation in the desert, scientists ask a series of questions. What is it made of? How old is it? What processes could have created it? Are there similar examples elsewhere? Can its features be reproduced by known natural forces? Using tools like radiometric dating, satellite imaging, seismic surveys and chemical analysis, science often finds answers that fit within natural laws. But here is where tension arises. For those drawn to mystery, natural explanations can feel unsatisfying. They may answer how, but not why. They reduce wonder to mechanism. And in that reduction, something feels lost. Yet science itself is a kind of myth, a story we tell about the world, one built not on gods but on laws, not on revelation but on evidence. Like any myth, it has its symbols, atoms, molecules, galaxies. Like any myth, it has its heroes, Newton, Darwin, Einstein. And like any myth, it offers a vision of origin and destiny. In this myth, Earth is shaped not by hands but by forces. Mountains rise where plates collide, valleys form where rivers cut, oceans gather in basins carved by tectonic motion. Everything has a process, everything has a cause. This story strips away the image of architects, but it leaves us with something equally awe-inspiring. A planet shaped by time itself. A planet that writes its own history in stone, without the need for shapers beyond nature. And yet, despite the elegance of scientific answers, mystery persists. The Antarctic pyramid still sparks debate. The Bosnian hills still draw visitors. The Risha structure still inspires theories. Why? Because humans are not only logical beings, we are also dreamers. We crave meaning as much as explanation. Science tells us how things happened, but we yearn to know why. And in that gap, the gap between mechanism and meaning, conspiracy, speculation and myth thrive. Perhaps that is why the idea of Earth shaped by intelligence endures. Science cannot fully extinguish it, because the idea does not only live in facts, it lives in our desire to belong to a story larger than ourselves. So, where does this leave us? Somewhere in between. Science explains much. It gives us confidence that Earth's shape can be understood without invoking hidden architects. But science also leaves mysteries unsolved, gaps unfilled, anomalies unexplained. And it is in those spaces that our imaginations work hardest, weaving myths old and new. Not because science has failed, but because the human spirit refuses to settle for a world without wonder. Science, then, is not the end of the story. It is part of it. It pushes back against wild claims, yes, but it also sharpens the mystery. Because every rebuttal leaves behind a residue of possibility, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, the ancients were right. And so we stand at a crossroads. The evidence points to geology, erosion and time. The myths point to architects, gods and intelligences. Between them lies the mystery of Earth itself, a mystery that deepens, not dissolves, the more we study. Which brings us to the next step in this journey, the unresolved questions, the gaps science cannot yet fill, the anomalies that remain stubborn, the rumours that refuse to die. For it is in those shadows that the story grows stranger still. Science explains much, but not everything. For every mountain that geology neatly accounts for, there are others that whisper of secrets. For every myth explained as metaphor, there are stories that still feel too sharp, too persistent to dismiss entirely. And in our modern age, where satellites map every corner of the Earth, and the internet amplifies every odd discovery, the unresolved questions grow louder. What remains unexplained? What whispers refuse to die? And what rumours, whether grounded in fact or spun from imagination, continue to suggest that perhaps Earth's shape hides more than we realise? In recent years, high-resolution satellite imagery has opened new ways of seeing our world. But with clarity comes confusion. Strange patterns have been spotted. Straight lines cutting across deserts, geometric shapes in forests, grids beneath the ocean. Some are later explained: roads, irrigation systems, the remnants of forgotten civilizations. Others remain stubbornly ambiguous. A triangle carved into the sands of Nevada, a massive X in the wilderness of Siberia, perfect squares beneath shallow seas near the Bahamas. Each time speculation surges. Are these the remains of lost cities, ancient markers left by intelligence, or simple geological quirks, exaggerated by pixelated images and human imagination? The fact that many remain unverified only fuels the intrigue. For every anomaly dismissed as a glitch, there are others waiting, unexplained, pulling new eyes into the mystery. Antarctica, more than any other continent, is a crucible for rumour. Vast, frozen, and inaccessible, it hides whatever secrets it may hold beneath miles of ice. And because so few are allowed to see it firsthand, almost any claim can survive there. Whispers speak of pyramids, of course, their peaks jutting above the snow. But there are stranger stories, vast caverns beneath the ice heated by geothermal vents, large enough to conceal entire cities. Unusual magnetic readings suggesting structures buried deep. Old expedition logs hinting at discoveries quickly silenced. Even governments add to the intrigue. The Antarctic Treaty restricts exploration, forbidding military presence and limiting civilian access. Officially, this is to protect the environment, but in the world of rumour, it is proof that something is being hidden. Whether it is alien bases, ancient ruins, or forgotten technologies, Antarctica has become a blank canvas for speculation. And until the ice melts, or the restrictions ease, the continent will continue to hold a place at the heart of Earth's unresolved mysteries. Across the world, certain formations stir uncanny recognition. In Canada, the Nahanni Valley has cliffs that seem to form human profiles. In Peru, a mountainside resembles a vast sculpted face, eyes staring into the distance. In South Dakota, even before Mount Rushmore was carved, people noticed the natural rock seemed to form shapes suggestive of human figures. Science points to erosion and coincidence, but myths say otherwise. Local traditions often speak of spirits, ancestors, or gods imprinting their presence onto the land. These faces, they say, are not accidents. They are markers, signs that the world itself remembers those who shaped it. The rumours spread, especially in our digital age, where photographs circle the globe instantly. Each new face discovered reignites the question: coincidence or design? For centuries, stories have circulated about vast underground worlds. The hollow Earth theory, though scientifically rejected, remains one of the most persistent. It suggests not only that Earth is hollow, but that it is inhabited by advanced beings, hidden civilizations, or remnants of lost ages. Legends of Agartha, Shambhala, and other subterranean kingdoms add fuel. Some explorers claim to have found tunnels stretching for miles, carved with precision far beyond what ancient tools could achieve. Whispers of entire cave networks beneath South America, Asia, and even North America hint at worlds we have barely glimpsed. Science explains caves as products of erosion, lava tubes, and groundwater. But for those drawn to mystery, the sheer scale of some underground systems, the Mammoth Cave Network in Kentucky, the Derinkuyu underground city in Turkey, suggests that humanity has always lived just above deeper, hidden realms. And in that hiddenness, speculation thrives. 70% of Earth's surface is ocean, and yet we've explored less than a fraction of it. What lies beneath remains largely unknown. Stories abound of sunken cities, Yonaguni in Japan, the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, ruins off the coast of India. Each discovery blurs the line between geology and architecture. Each invites speculation about civilizations swallowed by rising seas or monuments deliberately hidden beneath the waves. Science offers explanations: sandstone fractures, volcanic remnants, coral formations. But the ocean is too vast, too secretive for certainty. And so the rumours continue. Entire histories drowned, waiting to be rediscovered. In the age of the internet, rumours spread like fire. A satellite image, a blurry photograph, a half-remembered story can circle the globe in hours, and with each retelling, the mystery grows. A strange shadow in the desert becomes a lost pyramid. A circle in the ocean becomes evidence of Atlantis. A structure glimpsed on Google Earth becomes proof of alien architecture. Most of these claims fade when investigated, but some remain stubbornly unresolved. And in that space, imagination flourishes. The viral effect ensures that even when debunked, the idea lives on, transformed into legend for a new generation. Why do these unresolved questions and rumours persist? Partly because humans are drawn to secrets. We crave the feeling that the world is larger than we know, that behind the curtain of the ordinary lies something extraordinary. It is the same hunger that drives us to myths, to conspiracy theories, to late-night conversations where we wonder aloud about hidden truths. The Earth, vast and ancient, offers the perfect stage. Its mountains, oceans, and deserts are not just landscapes. They are mysteries waiting for meaning. And until every anomaly is explained, every shadow explored, that hunger will keep the questions alive, so the rumours persist. satellite anomalies, Antarctic secrets, faces in the rock, subterranean kingdoms, sunken cities, viral mysteries. Some are explained, some remain unverified, and some may never be resolved. But all of them circle the same central question. Is the Earth truly natural, or is it shaped by something greater? And if it was shaped, if even a fragment of the myths and rumours are true, what would that mean for us? What would it mean for our history, our identity, our place in the cosmos? That question leads us to the next step. Beyond evidence and rumour lies implication. Because if Earth was shaped, then humanity itself may not be what it thinks it is. We like to believe we are the authors of our own story, the first and the finest builders, the ones who raised cities from dust, mapped the seas, and bent nature to our will. We write history books that begin with us, with the spark of language, the strike of stone tools, the birth of agriculture. But if Earth itself was sculpted before we arrived, then our story is not the first chapter. It is, at best, a sequel. What if we are not pioneers but inheritors? What if the world we see around us, the ridges of mountains, the pathways of rivers, the boundaries of continents, was already written before we came to be? Then our achievements, as grand as they seem, would be like children decorating the margins of a manuscript too vast for them to read. It is an unsettling thought, because it suggests we may not fully understand what we are. If Earth was shaped, then perhaps humanity was shaped with it. Some myths already whisper this. In Sumerian tales, the gods did not simply build the Earth, they created people to tend it. In Mesoamerican stories, the gods shaped the world multiple times, reshaping humans along with it until they achieved the version that could survive. In the Hebrew Bible, humanity is moulded from dust, animated with divine breath. Could it be that we were not random outcomes of evolution, but intentional designs placed upon a designed stage? If Earth was sculpted, perhaps life itself, our bodies, our thoughts, our very capacity for wonder, was part of the same blueprint. Science explains life as a natural product of chemistry and time, honed by evolution's endless experiments. But if Earth bears the fingerprints of intelligence, then the line between natural and designed blurs. Maybe our DNA is as much an artifact as the mountains we climb. And if that is true, then humanity may not be what it thinks it is. We may not be masters of Earth, but characters in a story written long ago fulfilling a role we do not yet understand. For centuries we have prided ourselves on control. We reshape landscapes, dam rivers, cut roads through mountains. We orbit satellites, split atoms, engineer genes. It feels like power, like mastery. But if the world itself was designed, then all of our works exist inside someone else's architecture. We are like tenants painting the walls of a house we did not build. The foundations, the rooms, the hidden corridors, they are not ours. Think of how ants build colonies on the floor of a cathedral. To them, the stones are just ground, the walls just barriers. They do not realize the building was shaped by hands far larger than theirs. Could we be in the same position, mistaking the stage for the world, never realizing the scale of the structure we inhabit? If so, then our control is an illusion. The true shape of Earth, and the story behind it, was determined long before us. But what if this inheritance is not a trap, but a gift? If Earth was shaped by intelligence, then perhaps we are its heirs. Perhaps the landscapes were carved not to imprison us, but to prepare us, to guide us into becoming what we are meant to be. The myths often describe gods handing down knowledge, teaching humanity agriculture, astronomy, architecture. What if those stories are fragments of a truth, that the shaping of Earth was meant to nurture intelligence, to provide a home where a new species could grow? In that case, humanity is not an accident. We are part of the design. We're a continuation of it, a living piece of a larger puzzle. That realization changes our identity. We're not alone in the cosmos, not because aliens are watching us, but because we are already part of a lineage of intelligence that spans beyond us. But there is another possibility. What if we were not meant to be here at all? If Earth was shaped for a purpose, perhaps humanity is incidental. We may be squatters in a monument not built for us, wanderers who stumbled into a cathedral we cannot comprehend. In this view, our existence is an accident, and our stories are graffiti scrawled on the walls of something sacred. That is a frightening thought, that we're not the intended audience, not the heirs, not the children of design, but intruders. And perhaps the silence of the shapers, their absence from our world, is not abandonment but disinterest. They did not leave us behind. They never cared for us at all. If that is true, then humanity itself is not what it thinks it is. We are not chosen, not special, not central. We are background noise in someone else's design. And yet, rumours and myths always leave space for return. Gods who promised to come back. Builders who said their work was unfinished. Legends of subterranean kings who sleep until the right moment. If Earth was shaped, then perhaps its architects are not gone. Perhaps they are waiting. Perhaps they are watching, hidden in the silence of mountains, the depths of oceans, the darkness beneath ice. And if they return, what then? Would they see us as heirs to their work, ready to inherit their knowledge, or as intruders, disrupting their design? Would they guide us into new futures or erase us as mistakes? This is the most haunting possibility of all, that our place in the story has not yet been decided, that we are living in the middle chapters of a tale whose ending remains unwritten. All around the world, myths echo these fears and hopes. Gods shaping humans from clay, giants leaving behind bones that became mountains, subterranean kingdoms promising return, floods that reset the world as though erasing failed drafts. Perhaps these myths are not fantasies but memories, faint recollections of earlier interactions with the shapers of Earth. Perhaps humanity has always known deep down that we are not what we think we are, that our story is not entirely ours. And that is why these unresolved questions, these persistent rumours, grip us so tightly. Because at their core, they are not just about pyramids or faces in the rock. They are about us. They are about identity, origin, and destiny. Because if Earth was shaped, then humanity itself may not be what it thinks it is. But maybe that is not a curse. Maybe it is an invitation to humility, reminding us that we walk on ground we do not fully understand. An invitation to curiosity, challenging us to keep asking, keep exploring, keep seeking. An invitation to awe, because whether Earth was shaped by gods, aliens, ancestors, or itself, the result is still a world of staggering mystery. Perhaps the true purpose of the rumours, the myths, the anomalies, is not to give us answers, but to keep us asking, to keep us awake in the middle of the night, staring at the stars, wondering, what if? And so the questions remain. If Earth was shaped, then who shaped it? For what reason? And what does that make us, children of the design or strangers living in its shadow? The answers may never come, but the search itself reshapes us. It makes us humble. It makes us dream. And above all, it makes us remember that the world we take for granted may be stranger, deeper, and more intentional than we can imagine. If Earth truly was shaped by an ancient intelligence, the revelation would be nothing less than world-shattering. It would not simply rewrite history books, it would rewrite the very foundation of human identity, because it would mean that the ground beneath us, the mountains above us, the seas surrounding us, were not accidents of geology or chance, but intentional creations. Every step we take would be across the blueprint of a mind beyond our own. The question then is what this would mean for science, for religion, for society, for the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. First, there would be shock. Everything we thought we knew about the world, plate tectonics, erosion, natural selection, would have to be re-examined, not discarded, but reframed. Science would not vanish, but it would no longer be the sole author of Earth's story. Behind the processes we measure, there would stand intent, and intent changes everything. Imagine the moment such proof was revealed, a mountain uncovered to be a monument or an ocean trench shown to be an engineered design. Overnight, humanity would move from certainty into mystery, and with mystery comes both wonder and fear. For religions, the implications would be seismic. Faiths that already speak of divine creation would see confirmation. The earth, shaped by intelligence, would echo the oldest scriptures. In the beginning, the heavens and the earth were made. Believers might feel vindicated, their traditions renewed with fresh power, but whose gods would be confirmed? If the intelligence was alien, how would that fit with sacred texts? Would followers of different faiths claim the shapers as their own deities? Would new religions form around the idea of planetary architects? History shows us that revelations often fracture as much as they unify. Some would see proof of their gods, others would see proof of false gods. Still others would see no gods at all, but advanced beings mistaken for them. The religious landscape would shift, perhaps explosively. Science too would face a reckoning. For centuries the story has been one of natural law. Gravity pulls, plates collide, water calves. But if intelligence was behind Earth's shape, then those laws are not blind forces. They are tools in the hands of a designer. Scientists would struggle. Some would resist, clinging to natural explanations. Others would embrace the challenge, seeking to understand the methods of the shapers. Could their techniques be reverse engineered? Could humanity learn to shape planets as they once did? Entire fields would be transformed. Geology would no longer be the study of random processes, but the archaeology of design. Biology would no longer be the study of blind evolution, but the study of choices embedded in DNA. Astronomy would expand beyond searching for habitable planets to searching for designed ones. The implications ripple outward. If Earth was shaped, why not other worlds? Suddenly every planet, every moon, every asteroid becomes a potential artifact. The universe itself might be revealed as a gallery of designed works, waiting to be recognized. Human societies do not react to revelations with calm. The knowledge that Earth was shaped would become a tool, a weapon, a prize. Nations might race to control sites believed to hold evidence of the shapers. Wars could be fought over mountains, deserts, or ocean trenches suddenly declared sacred or strategic. Governments might suppress information to avoid panic, or manipulate it to strengthen their authority. At the same time, grassroots movements might rise, claiming access to truth, demanding transparency, declaring independence from the old worldviews. Conspiracy would collide with confirmation, creating chaos in the public sphere. For the first time in history, the question of who controls the story of Earth would become as urgent as who controls its resources. On the personal level, the implications are intimate. To wake up one morning and realize the earth beneath your feet was shaped by intelligence would change how you see everything. The mountains on the horizon would no longer be scenery. They would be messages. The rivers would no longer be chance. They would be pathways. The stars themselves might feel closer, as if the shapers were still watching. For some, this would bring comfort. Life would no longer feel meaningless. The universe would not be indifferent. It would be intentional. We would be part of something greater. For others, it would bring dread. If Earth was shaped, then our lives might not be our own. We might be living in a design whose purpose we cannot control. And what if that purpose is not for us? The human psyche, accustomed to believing in randomness or in familiar gods, would be thrust into a vast unknown. Anxiety, awe, depression, and ecstasy would ripple across the globe. Some would embrace the mystery, others would flee from it. The greatest implication of all lies in the question of why. If Earth was shaped, it must have been shaped for a reason. Was it to create a home for life, to serve as a testing ground, to act as a monument, a message, a marker for other intelligences? If it was for us, then we are part of the design. Our existence is not random, but deliberate. That thought would transform how we treat the earth and how we treat each other. If the world is a temple, then to harm it is sacrilege. If humanity is part of the plan, then every life carries immense weight. But if it was not for us, the implications are darker. We might be incidental, irrelevant, or even obstacles. In that case, the design may hold purposes we cannot fathom, purposes that may not include our survival. And always, beneath all the speculation, lies the question of return. If the earth was shaped, are its shapers gone forever, or are they still here? The myths often suggest they will return. Gods who promise to come back, builders who say their work is unfinished, hidden kings who sleep beneath mountains, waiting for the right time. If the shapers return, humanity would face its greatest test. Would we meet them as children greeting their ancestors, as students ready to learn, or as trespassers on land that was never ours? The very thought changes how we live, because if the return is possible, then everything we do may be part of the test. At its core, the greatest implication of all is narrative. Humanity's story would collapse and be reborn. No longer would we be the first, the only, the pinnacle. We would be participants in a tale far older and far larger than ourselves. That realization would humble us. It would terrify us. It would inspire us. And it would change us forever. So what are the implications if Earth was shaped by an ancient intelligence? They are as vast as the planet itself. Religion, science, politics, psychology, all would shift. Certainty would shatter. Mystery would reign. And perhaps that is the greatest gift of all. Not answers, but perspective. 2. Remember that we are not the centre of the story, but part of it. To remember that the world we call home may be more than a planet. It may be a monument, a message, a mystery. And as we draw this journey to a close, one question remains. If Earth was shaped, then what comes next? If Earth was shaped, then our story as humans would no longer be the same story. Every system we live by, our knowledge, our politics, our faiths, would need to be re-examined under a new light. The realization would not arrive softly. It would crash like thunder. Religions around the globe would surge with energy and conflict. Entire denominations might claim the revelation as proof that their interpretation of creation was correct. Christian groups might declare the Shapers to be angels or God's agents. Hindu traditions might see them as devas or cosmic architects fulfilling the cycles of creation. Indigenous peoples, long speaking of ancestral beings who moulded the land, would find their teachings vindicated, but fractures would appear just as quickly. Who gets to define the Shapers? Are they divine or simply advanced? If the evidence points to alien origin, would faiths collapse, or would they adapt, saying that aliens were the instruments of God? And what about those who lose faith? If their God is replaced with an engineer, their scripture with a blueprint, where do they turn? Religious schisms have shaken civilizations before. This one could shake the entire globe. Scientists would not sit still. The discovery of Earth's design would ignite a firestorm of new research. Imagine teams of geologists mapping every mountain with fresh eyes, searching for patterns too deliberate to be chance. Biologists re-examining DNA, wondering if signatures of design lie hidden in the code. Astronomers turning telescopes outward, scanning not only for habitable planets, but for designed ones. But there would also be resistance. Some scientists would reject the idea outright, refusing to abandon the framework of natural law. Others would see it as a chance to expand the boundaries of science itself, incorporating intelligence into cosmology. Entire new fields might emerge: geoarchaeology of design, astroarchitecture, the physics of intention. Humanity has always advanced in leaps, sparked by revelation. The recognition of Earth as designed would be one of the greatest leaps of all. The political world would convulse. Evidence of Earth's design would not remain neutral. Governments would fight to control it. If the proof lay in Antarctica, for example, nations might rush to secure the site, breaking treaties, risking war. If it lay under the ocean, naval powers would seize control. If in the desert, armies would march. Secrecy would bloom like wildfire. Authorities would fear panic, hoarding the truth until they could weaponize it. Whispers of cover-ups would spread, and conspiracy would suddenly feel less like fantasy and more like foresight. Citizens might demand disclosure, triggering global unrest. Even the mere suspicion of evidence would be enough to destabilize trust. People would ask, what are they hiding? Who really owns the story of Earth? Beyond religion, science, and politics, the revelation would seep into everyday life. Imagine art reborn, inspired by the idea of a designed world. Painters and poets reinterpreting landscapes as sacred texts. Architects mimicking the proportions of mountains. Musicians writing symphonies in honor of planetary design. Cinema and literature would explode with new genres. Stories not of alien invasions, but of alien inheritances. Not of human triumph, but of human humility in the face of planetary intelligence. Children would grow up learning not just geography, but intentional geography. A map would no longer be a chart of natural features, but a coded design, each mountain range a sentence, each river a phrase. But perhaps the most profound implications would be existential. If Earth was shaped, what does that make? Us? Are we the intended occupants, or merely incidental? Are we the purpose of the design or its bystanders? The uncertainty would gnaw at us. For some, the idea would be liberating. We are not accidents. We are participants in something greater, part of a story vast enough to stretch beyond time. Life would feel purposeful. Every sunrise would feel like a deliberate gesture. For others, it would be terrifying. If we are participants, then who writes the script? If we are bystanders, then are we even safe? And if the Shapers return, will they welcome us, or erase us as errors? Our sense of control, already fragile, would fracture. We might feel less like masters of the earth, and more like actors on a stage whose playwright we cannot see. Across decades and centuries, the recognition of Earth's design would reshape civilization itself. Education would change. Children would not simply learn about natural processes. They would learn about design thinking on a planetary scale. The next generations might see themselves less as consumers of the Earth and more as caretakers of a monument. Ethics would change. Environmental destruction would no longer be framed as waste or negligence. It would be desecration. Every forest cut, every mountain mined would feel like vandalizing sacred architecture. Philosophy would change. Thinkers would wrestle with questions of intent. What is design without a designer present? Can purpose exist if it is unknown? Is ignorance of intent freedom or bondage? Identity would change. Humanity would no longer define itself as the first intelligence on Earth. We would become a successor species, heirs or squatters, in a world already shaped, and beyond Earth, the implications ripple into the cosmos. If Earth was shaped, then it is not unique. Other planets may be shaped too. Our search for life among the stars would become a search for design. Every exoplanet photographed would be scrutinized not only for water and atmosphere, but for symmetry, geometry, and intent. And if design is found elsewhere, if Mars or Venus or distant worlds show signs of the same hand, then the story is bigger still. Earth is not a solitary artifact, but one in a gallery of worlds shaped by intelligence. This would be the final collapse of human exceptionalism. We are not the first. We are not the center. We are participants in a cosmic network of design. Ultimately, if Earth was shaped, the greatest implication may be responsibility. To live on a designed world is to live in a monument. To harm it is not only to harm nature, but to insult its architects. To thrive upon it is to fulfill the intent of those who shaped it. Whether we are heirs or strangers, the knowledge would demand change. We would no longer have the luxury of ignorance. Every choice, every action would carry the weight of meaning. Perhaps this is the true purpose of the idea, not to give us certainty, but to force us to live differently, to live as though the Earth itself matters in ways beyond survival, to live as though every step we take is sacred. So what are the implications if Earth was shaped? They are infinite, spiritual, scientific, political, cultural, personal, cosmic. It would be the end of one story and the beginning of another. A story where humanity is not alone, not supreme, but woven into something larger. A story that humbles us and elevates us at the same time. Because if Earth was shaped, then everything we do upon it becomes part of the design. And that is a responsibility and a wonder that we're only beginning to imagine. We began with myths, stories of gods moulding the earth, of giants shaping mountains, of divine battles leaving scars across the land. At first they seemed like tales, like distant echoes from cultures long gone. But as we travelled across continents, across pyramids of ice, cones of jungle, rings of desert and faces in stone, we found that the myths refused to fade. They lingered, mirrored by the land itself. Then came the modern theories, ancient aliens, lost civilizations, hidden intelligences, simulations. They stretched the myths into new shapes, clothed them in the language of technology and speculation. They deepened the mystery, asking not just what if the Earth was shaped, but what if the Earth was shaped for us, or not for us at all. Science, patient and methodical, gave its answers. Erosion, tectonics, time. It reminded us that nature is capable of wonders, that the world we stand upon is already a masterpiece without needing architects. But even as science explained, it did not silence. Because in the gaps, in the silences, in the unresolved questions, the human hunger for meaning survived. And that hunger fuels the rumours, the whispers, the endless search. So where does that leave us? Perhaps the truth is that Earth reflects us. To the believer, it looks like design. To the skeptic, it looks like process. To the dreamer, it looks like a story. To the scientist, it looks like data. The same mountain, the same valley, the same ocean, seen through different eyes, becomes a different world. If Earth was shaped, it forces us to look at ourselves, to ask whether we are living as intended, or whether we are wandering through someone else's monument without noticing the walls. To ask whether our myths are memories, our ruins are clues, our stories are fragments of a truth too vast to grasp. And even if Earth was not shaped, even if it is simply the product of blind forces, it remains just as mysterious. Because blind forces created not just rocks and rivers, but us, creatures who can wonder, imagine, and tell stories about ancient intelligences. The true power of the idea that Earth was shaped is not in its answer, but in its question. The question shakes us. It humbles us. It expands our vision beyond the ordinary. If Earth was shaped, then who shaped it? If Earth was shaped, then why? If Earth was shaped, then what does that make us? These questions do not end when the video ends. They echo. They follow you into dreams. They linger when you look at a mountain or a coastline or the night sky. They remind you that the world is not settled, that certainty is a thin veneer over a mystery deeper than time. Because in the end, the story of Earth is not finished. It is being written still, in every discovery, in every excavation, in every satellite image, in every myth retold. We stand in the middle of it, uncertain whether we are the first chapter or the last. Maybe one day proof will come, a monument uncovered, a message decoded, a return we cannot deny. Or maybe proof will never come, and the Earth will keep its secrets silent and inscrutable, forcing us to live in the space between wonder and doubt. But perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the shapers, if they exist, never wanted us to find certainty. Perhaps they wanted us to keep searching, to keep asking, to keep dreaming. Because it is in the dreaming that humanity finds its true strength. So as you lie here now, listening, drifting towards sleep, let the thought settle. What if the Earth was shaped by an ancient intelligence? What if the world itself is a message, waiting for you to learn its language? What if every horizon, every sunrise, every breath of wind is part of a design older than time? The answer may never come, but the question itself is enough, because it reminds us that the Earth is not ordinary, it is not empty, it is alive with mystery, and maybe, just maybe, that mystery is the greatest gift of all. Because mystery is what keeps us awake beneath the stars, staring upward long after the fire has gone out. Mystery is what makes a child ask why the mountain is shaped like a pyramid, or why the ocean seems endless, or why the stories of gods and giants echo from one culture to another. Mystery pulls us forward, into the unknown, into the future. If the Earth was shaped, then the mystery is obvious. Who did it, and why? If the Earth was not shaped, if it is only the patient work of time, then the mystery is just as profound. How could blind forces create something so breathtaking, so symmetrical, so alive with meaning? Either way, the mystery endures, and it is this endurance that matters most. because certainty is heavy, it closes doors. Mystery is light, it keeps them open. To live with mystery is to live with possibility. It is to wake each morning knowing that the world you walk upon may be far stranger than you realize. Think of it the next time you see a mountain. Don't just see rock, see a question. Ask yourself, is this the work of time or of intention? Was it carved by rivers as wind, or by hands and minds long forgotten? And as you ask, let the question change how you feel. Let it make the world larger, the air richer, the sky deeper. Think of it the next time you see the ocean. Don't just see water, see a boundary. Ask yourself, is this sea a natural basin, or was it drawn like a line on a map? Did it fill by chance or by plan? And as the waves move, let them remind you that all boundaries can shift, that all truths may be larger than we believe. Think of it the next time you hear an old myth. Don't just hear a story, hear a memory. Ask yourself, were the gods, the giants, the architects just metaphors, or were they echoes of something real, something ancient, something the earth itself still remembers? And think of it, finally, when you lie down to sleep. Don't just close your eyes on another day. Let the questions drift with you into dreams, because the dream is where mystery breathes. And maybe, just maybe, the shapers still speak in dreams, waiting for us to listen. If the earth was shaped, then every horizon is a sentence, every mountain a word, every valley a pause. The world itself becomes a book we're learning to read, and we're not at the end of it. We're not even in the middle. We're at the very beginning, turning the first pages, tracing our fingers across letters carved in stone. And if the earth was not shaped, if it is the child of chaos and chance, then the mystery is even deeper. Because chaos has given birth to order, to beauty, to life, to us, beings who can ask the question at all. In that case, the shaper is not a god, nor an alien, nor an ancient king. The shaper is the universe itself, writing poetry in atoms and oceans. Either way, we are surrounded by mystery, and either way the question remains. So perhaps the greatest gift is not the answer, but the asking. To live in a world where we can wonder. To live in a world where pyramids rise from ice, where faces stare from cliffs, where oceans hide their secrets, where myths echo across centuries. To live in a world that does not give up its truths easily, but invites us to search. And when you feel small, when you feel lost, remember this. You're standing on a mystery. You are walking across a monument. You're breathing in the story of a planet older than memory. And whether it was shaped by gods, aliens, ancestors or chance, it has given you the same gift. It has given you wonder. And maybe that is enough. Maybe that is what it means to live on Earth, to walk the line between certainty and mystery, between science and story, between what is known and what can only be dreamed. So close your eyes now and let the thought rest with you. The Earth is not ordinary. It is not silent. It is not finished. It is alive with questions humming beneath your feet, whispering through the wind, echoing in the crash of waves and the stillness of mountains. And as you drift into sleep, carry with you the possibility that you're not just a person on a planet. You're a witness in a monument, a character in a design, a dreamer in a world still holding secrets. And maybe, just maybe, that is the greatest gift of all.